Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview streamers and content creators with the sole intention of getting to know the person behind the camera. Today, we have NewmanBeatbox, beatbox extraordinaire, and Mario 64 speedrunner. Beats, how are you doing? It's good to have you on the pod.
That's me, Andy. Thanks for the introduction. That was super nice. I'm doing super well. I'm glad to be here, and I probably should just repeat something that I've been thinking all weekend, and that's that I have been listening to the previous episodes on the podcast and just really admire what you're doing. I think it's cool that you're exposing other streamers, and just the whole thing that I was saying just before we started the episode, that it takes a lot of work to do something like this, and I think it takes a special breed of individual to take the initiative to put all this together, and I feel super lucky to be a part of it. So thanks a lot, Andy.
No, anytime. I appreciate you saying that, man. Yeah, it's yeah, I just think I love doing this like as a streamer. I love getting to know people, talking about it. And like I think as well, like because we do share all these communities, I think it's a good thing to bring everybody together, get to know the people who well, essentially the people who bring all these people, other people together, who create these communities. It's nice, and but yeah, I appreciate you saying that, man. And obviously the support that people have given this, it's
Mhm.
yeah, oh, it's awesome. Honestly, I feel very blessed to be in the position to be able to do this and to bring on people like yourself and everything like that. So yeah,
I'm so
it's
glad.
awesome.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad. I do feel like this community is a very uniquely tight knit, and uh, I feel that there's just a sort of togetherness, a closeness that I feel from this corner of the internet. The corner of the internet that I call the coolest corner of the internet, just because of how close everyone is. And so to have something like this on top of it makes total sense. I feel what you're saying, and I'm glad you've been feeling some success with it as you've been starting out. Because what are we on episode? Is this your fifth episode or so?
Yeah, this is episode 5.
Awesome, right in the beginning stages. That's so cool.
Yeah, like it was only meant to be like a 2 week thing, but a few things shifted around and I've had a bit more time, so it's
Mhm.
nice to kind of get them out there. But yeah, so enough about myself. Eats. Let's hear about you. So obviously, just the premise. I have a few questions, and we'll just sort of chat away about it. Get to know you just a little bit better. So first thing I want to know: what did the beginning of your streaming slash content creation journey look like? So for as long as I followed you, you've been taking Mario 64 speedrunning by storm, really. Like, because I believe was it like early last year or 2022 you started, and that was the beginning of Mario, and it went from there. But that coupled with your beatboxing, which is again it's incredible. I heard some before we went live, and I blown away. Will never
Thanks.
not be amazed by that. So, was this always a plan when you started streaming? What was like? Take us back to the beginning of your journey.
Sure. Yeah, it's I've pursued several things in a similar genre to what we're doing here with Mario. And so it's actually um it's kind of a nuanced question or an answer that I have for you, but if we're talking about just Mario, this is something that
Mm-hmm.
was born out of honestly a love for playing games and connecting with my older brother. My older brother T We call ourselves the Newman Brothers, and we've been gaming together just to kind of stay connected in our adult life for the last like
Mm-hmm.
10 years. We've played a lot of it. Started with, geez, I think the first game that I feel like we really started chatting more about in our adult life was something like Clash of Clans or Clash Royale. Clear back, and now I'm thinking this was like 2000 and had to be 2013 or so.
Yeah.
And we both had gone our separate ways out of the house now, and this was kind of the first game that I recall us introducing to kind of chat about and have something that we're connected for through. And then over the years, we got into other games like Overwatch and different shooters like Call of Duty, Fortnite, even for a little bit, Apex Legends. And long story short, we kind of bounced around a whole bunch of games, and that was a lot of fun for us. But I'd always been interested in speedrunning, and I'd been watching it, but that was never something that I think Tyson got super into.
Yeah.
And one day he was on TikTok in, had to be either really late 2020, what year is it? 2022. So like either like November or December 2022 or early 2023. We saw, are you familiar with the creator Ryukar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
He plays all sorts of Mario games, especially the 2D games. But he was at the time that I'm talking about playing Mario 64. He was doing a speed run he was speed running 70 star every single day, and he was trying to beat the game in under an hour. And
Yeah.
Tyson had gotten introduced to him through TikTok, saw his lives, and he reached out to me. And we talked about speedrunning a couple times through the years. I loved it, and I'd been watching a ton of speedrunning, but he was a little less familiar, and he just loved it and thought it would be a really cool pursuit for him to start trying to speedrun. He didn't have enough followers to go live, and so he wasn't. It was just kind of a thing where we started making some content, and we took this as a similar pursuit to what we'd done in the past, where we'd been playing games together. But now it was because it wasn't a multiplayer game, Mario. It was more of a thing where Tyson started learning to speedrun. I wasn't fully convinced or thought that I would start speedrunning yet, and so in order to keep that connection that we had had over the last decade, I thought, well, I know a lot about content creation and
Hmm.
enough about making videos and stuff that I know that I can take that part on for you if you ever want to push this towards a live setting. If you want to go live on TikTok, I can help you get the followers with making videos and stuff. And so just to reiterate, this is like early 2023. Yeah, that's right. And Teenum started doing some 70 star runs. I'm making
Yeah.
content, and he was great. He really, from my perspective, I know I'm biased because he's my brother, but he really took he really showed the community um some good Mario. He learned quickly. He
Yeah.
got sub hour really a lot faster than either of us knew that he would be able to in the time frame. It was only a couple months, and we were able to get him the followers, and he started going live. And all the while I'd been making thumbnails and posting his YouTube video PBs and stuff and helping him with content on TikTok, trying to be clever about what kind of clips we can make from Mario. We were making a lot of Mario facts, for example, videos, just short funny
Mm.
clips.
Yeah.
And then during his live streams, when he could go live, I started to get to know the community as well, just because I was so closely connected with Tyson and what he was doing with this game. And I thought it was so fun. And I fell in love with the community. I fell in love with the people. And Tyson had been asking me throughout this whole process if I thought that I would join him in the pursuit and start speedrunning myself. And I knew that I was super interested. I'd been watching speedrunning for, you know, a decade, and I'd never taken it on, but I did think it would be a lot of fun. I started dabbling a little bit in this time when I was seriously considering, yeah, maybe I will join you in this because I do love the community. Tyson and I have always done games. We're passionate about this, so let's pursue it. But I did start thinking that I would speed run maybe something else. I just wanted to make sure that if I jumped into this, that I was committed to it and that I really truly enjoyed it for myself. And I can give you a little backstory on that, but
Yeah.
basically that's what was in my mind. Um, I started looking at the game Celeste. I don't know if you've played the 2D platformer Celeste.
I haven't played Celeste. I've seen it before. I actually have it, but I just haven't played it yet. But I've seen it. Wonderful
Yeah.
game. Wonderful game.
Yeah, it's a really cool game. It's an indie game that came out in, I think, 2018. For those of you who don't know, Celeste is a 2D platformer, and there is basically the character is this girl that is trying, and the whole premise of the game, she's trying to climb a mountain. And you can imagine if it's a 2D platformer, there's all sorts of opportunity for interesting movement and climbing through the mountain. And I fell in love with this game because I loved the story. I loved that the whole premise of the game seemed to me that you're trying to climb a mountain, but the real story and the real lore of the game is that the main character is trying to conquer her own demons, and the real mountain
Hmm.
she had to climb was, you know, solving some of the grief and things that she was dealing with personally. And I just fell in love with the story, and the gameplay was so satisfying that I started learning a couple um levels and speed running techniques for that game, and I did really enjoy it. But ultimately, I was having so much fun with Mario that ended up just being something I considered right alongside Mario, and Mario took the cake because it
Hmm.
was satisfying on a different level. And maybe that's because I had that connection with Tyson and I wanted to do it with him. I'm not really sure, but I'm glad that I started pursuing it. Anyway, I've been talking a lot.
No,
I can
that's
keep
that's the
going
whole point
to
of it, man. That's the whole point of it. Like, I love that there's been this like constant collab with yourself and your brother, even like
yeah.
way before streaming, like you with the gaming and on your side, your content creation. Like, it's almost as if everything kind of just fell into place in like
Yeah.
such a beautiful way. In terms of like your early content creation, like was that like a lot of beatboxing content or was that a lot of gaming content, and how did you kind of like intertwine the two things together?
Yeah, that's why I kind of preface all this by saying that it's kind of difficult to answer this super straightforward because Mario is kind of all within the box of what I just described. Once I
Yeah.
decided to do Mario, that's when I kind of jumped on, once we got to the point where I had hashed out Celeste and looked at Mario, I ultimately fell in love with the game and I loved the community and everything that I was explaining, so I moved forward with Mario. But this is all stuff that happened in 2000, 2023 and 24, just the last, year and a
Yeah.
half. Before that, there's so many things that I've really tried to pursue related to content. And one of those is obviously beatboxing. So I guess if I were to answer the question that you asked right at the beginning of where, how it looked at the beginning, it really goes all the way back to when I started beatboxing and pursuing acapella. I
Mm-hmm.
am a beatboxer by trade and by profession. That is like, if there's one thing, it's probably that. If it's not that, then it's something like audio because I love live audio and studio audio type things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But I fell in love with acapella music when I was in high school. I thought it was so interesting what the voice was capable of.
Yeah.
It really set my heart on fire to listen to voices collaborating and sounding convincingly like there could be music playing
Mm-hmm.
in the group that was just voices. And so I started a little a cappella group with my friends in high school, and I was very driven to just kind of manage that and try and put something together related to that because I thought it was fun. I was just genuinely passionate about it. And I didn't start beatboxing right as I started pursuing acapella. That was just I guess, the door that led me to beatboxing. So in high school, I get into acapella. Eventually, a few years down the road, my parents got divorced in 2015 or so. And as you might expect, when your parents get divorced, and of course, before I say any of this, my family situation, I feel very fortunate. I've got good relationship with my parents. I don't bring this up to say that there's anything wrong there, of course.
No, of course, of course.
But yeah, when your parents are getting divorced, that sucks. It's not fun. And I wasn't super good on the sleep end during that time. I was staying up a lot. And when I was
Yeah.
staying up a lot in 2015, just because of, the stresses related to my parents' divorce, I found myself watching a lot of YouTube videos. And those YouTube videos ended up probably started with, acapella things and just because I was so obsessed with the genre at the time, but it really led into beatboxing and I started finding some beatboxing tutorials. And if you've ever tried to manage an a cappella group, you know that finding a beatboxer is one of the most difficult things to do. And so I, through the years, thought it was fun to mess with some beatboxing. But during my parents' divorce, up in the middle of the night, I started obsessing over beatboxing and wanting to make sounds that I discovered for the first time, even though I knew about acapella, I discovered for the first time that beatboxing went pretty deep. It's not just that you can make, sounds that are sort of like the drums, with like a
Yeah.
BTK or a boots and cats. That's kind of like a human sort of sound, but you can take that snare, which is fine and sounds okay, but you can take it and really sound like a drum. And to me, this was so cool. It it filled the hole in my heart that I was feeling over my parents' divorce. That's for sure. I thought it was so interesting. I wanted to figure out how to make all of the sounds that I felt like a human shouldn't be expected to make.
Mm-hmm.
All of those just really interested me. And so
Yeah.
because of this, I got into a cappella groups. I performed in a couple college groups, and I traveled all over the states. Also out to China and Thailand at one point in
Oh
2000, I
wow.
think 17. I was just with this group, Vocal Point, and they're a relatively popular group as far as collegiate a cappella goes. I was in that
Mm-hmm.
group from 2015, 16, yeah, 2016 until 2020. And so there was just a lot of beatboxing, a lot of performing through that. And then when I get out of college, we finally get to the answer to your question, which is when I started using beatboxing for content. That I wanted to get into public speaking after college. And I thought a good way to bolster my resume and the networking that I'd already been doing through the acapella groups that I was a part of would be um, to make content. And if I could get like a decent following, maybe that would make me more attractive to clients that are looking for public speakers. And I knew that my hook was beatboxing, so I kept the content on the beatboxing side. So I started doing beatboxing on TikTok in 2020. I started streaming on Twitch in 2021. I only did it for about 10 months, but I did a small pursuit there for a little while. And now my job outside of TikTok and Mario and everything since the pandemic started is I stream on a platform called Bigo. They pay me to use the app and live stream there, and that's primarily beatboxing content as well. That's
Oh.
my personal main source of income outside of streaming. So, all right. Okay, Andy, I'm so sorry I talked so long.
No, honestly, please. That is like that's the whole point of this. And honestly, that's a phenomenal story. Like I love that. Like there was like this snowball effect from the acapella to beatboxing, and then that's where it just took off for you from there. Like it's like you're saying, if you ever manage an acapella group, finding a beatboxer is hard. So
Yeah.
just become the beatboxer. Just
Right.
just do that. That's amazing. And your boots and cats emote now makes sense to me. I have
Right.
seen it. I've seen it before in your streams, and I'm like, I haven't been in this community long enough to understand that, but now I understand it. Yeah, it makes so much sense. It is actually such a mind blowing thing because, like as you said, it's not just making the sounds of a drum; it's really exploiting the noises that a human can make.
Sure.
Like you made electronic noises essentially with your mouth there. Like that to me is just incredible.
Thanks.
And the fact that you're able to sort of implement that into your streaming as well, like go from your content, implement that into Mario, like I say before, like it is just something that seems to have just fallen into place just perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that does actually kind of bring me on to the next point,
Mm-hmm.
like quite neatly. Because one thing I do like about your streams, it's your innovation, interaction, and just your general creativity, which obviously stems from your experience in content creation. Um, so like your use of spreadsheets, that's definitely like quite well, something that a lot of people might know you for, which I think is brilliant. It's good to be organized.
Thanks.
Bill and Bill is another
Mm.
thing I like about your streams.
Mm-hmm.
That's that to me is just brilliant, and it's 100% like the audio production experience in you. And that's just to name it a few things. So what can you then tell us about these things? Are these things that just came to you one day just on the fly, or was there any like prior thought into them? Like, was it a sort of a thing like, how can I make my streams stand out? Or was it just, this just kind of came up?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. This is an interesting one to me even sometimes. Beatboxing kind of gets coupled in with doing impressions a little bit, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
it's not far off for people to guess that a person that would imitate drum sounds could also do different voices of different characters. I don't consider myself a professional impressionist by any stretch, but I do, of course, it does fit within the realm of things that I pursue with beatboxing, trying to imitate as accurately as possible different sounds. And yeah, as far as spreadsheets go, it's just a drive to be organized. And
Hmm.
I like to offload my thoughts onto something so that I can visualize it in a way that's easier to understand. And so I wouldn't call myself a genius spreadsheet whiz, but I do like to organize things like that. And it's helped me a lot as I
Yeah.
pursue Mario. And so I just tried to share that with my audience as I am practicing or putting together a route for some co op Mario, which my brother and I have done a lot, and now we all do a lot with Boomy. I
Yeah.
would always use spreadsheets, and because of that, my community ended up, I guess, just making that a sort of theme, and I thought that was super super fun. As far as the impressions go, things like Bill and Bill. So, for context, for anybody that doesn't know, on my stream, at a certain point in the stream, Mario, if you're playing in a 120 star setting where you're getting all the stars in the game, after you get through a level called Bob on Battlefield, that is where all of a sudden these two characters will come out. They're both called Bill and Bill, and they're essentially like newscasters that are there to randomly comment on what's happening. And the question was, where did these two come from? And it is exactly what you said. At one point, it sounded like you said, was this kind of a spur of the moment thing that just happened, or was it planned before you ended up doing it the first time? And it is the first. Bill and
Hmm.
Bill just kind of happened one day in 2021, or maybe it was early 2022, when I was first looking into streaming gaming things and making content related to gaming. I was doing a Skyward Sword playthrough of
Hmm.
The Legend of Zelda. And while in Skyward Sword, if you've never played the game, you've got what's called a loft wing, which is just basically a big bird that like travels around the overworld. And the main setting of Skyward Sword is there's this whole area above the clouds that you fly around in. Anyway, you're playing with the Wii U remote or something. I think I'm playing with the Wii U remote, and I'm kind of shaking. I'm pretty sure I had to shake the Wii U remote, and I just thought it was all a weird experience, and I wanted to fill the time. And randomly, I thought, well, what if these newscasters were just, talking about whatever I'm doing right now? And and it happened. Bill and Bill came out. Bill and Bill were born, and I only used it for the Skyward Sword playthrough. And a similar sort of thing happened when I started doing 120 star in Super Mario 64. Is I realized that I needed to finish Bob on Battlefield and catch MIPS, which is just kind of a transitionary period in the game. There's not a ton of interesting things happen. My brain
Hmm.
doesn't need to be too focused. And Bill and Bill came out again, and now this is in 2023 or maybe 2024 at this point already. And so, yeah, that's really where that specific bit came from, is just kind of my innate desire to fill the time and be entertaining and try to be funny. And so, yeah, that's how it happened.
No, that's amazing because I personally love it. Like the fact that you can just switch in that moment and also just improvise it like to death. It's just like phenomenal because you have this like short window essentially to come up with something, and it's almost as if you have it pre-planned what you're gonna say in the time.
Oh, thanks for saying that.
It's that good. Like for anybody listening, watching, if you haven't seen this, definitely check out Beats when he's doing a 120 run and listen out for it. It's something to behold. Let me just tell you that right now. It is something to behold. It is it's a lot of fun.
Thanks for saying that.
Because if you close your eyes, you would think it's two different people talking for real. Do you think that there's anything you could like do to take Bill and Bill further, or are you happy just keeping it as this little segmented thing that you have just to keep it special within like the realms of what you do, or do you think it could be its own separate bit of content in its own right?
I absolutely do think that this probably applies, in my opinion, to most content creators that you I think that if you wanted to, you could make strong content out of most ideas. Maybe that's ignorant of me, but
Oh, I agree.
I do think that Bill and Bill could be something bigger, as far as more purposeful than just some random thing that happens on my stream if I'm in that given scenario. I did make one TikTok video where Bill and Bill introduced themselves, and I thought to myself at the time that it would be cool if Bill and Bill could fill some unique niche on my platform itself, just to introduce a more variety of content into my posting. Because on live streams, I'm all Mario, and on posting
Yeah.
at the time that I made this video, I was almost all beatbox. And I really would like to or at the time, I was hoping that I could introduce more variety of content slowly to the people that see my posts on TikTok. And I thought of using Bill and Bill. And not to be anticlimactic about this, but even though I still think it's a good idea, if I have one piece of advice to give myself at this moment, and probably since the start of all of this, is that I allow myself to get overwhelmed with all the ideas that I have. And
Mhm.
it just hasn't been fleshed out yet. And so, as anticlimactic as that is, I do think it would be great content. I would like it to make good content, to make it content, but I have not figured it out yet as far as introducing it into my schedule and making it a regular thing.
Yeah, of course. Like, 100% know what you're saying, because it is something like you have so many ideas, but if you wanted to make it something that, you're 100% happy with, something that you think is special and going to go far, you have to be sold right from the get-go of that, rather than being, I could do this, but I also could do this, I also could do this. I think in terms of things like that, if you have a single seed of doubt, or anything that could be like, well, I could do this instead, it's like, maybe that isn't the perfect idea. And
I agree.
sometimes with things like that, you only really get one chance to kind of make it work. Otherwise, you do that. If it doesn't work, you kind of have to give it like a big 6 month, 12-month cool down period before you kind of go again. And it's like,
Hmm.
that to like take back to what you said earlier about you having streamed on Twitch in 2021, if I remember correctly, for about 10 months. Like, you'd be amazed at how common a thing that is. Like, pretty much everybody who I've interviewed to this day has pretty much been in the same boat. They gave it a go for a while. It didn't really either go the way they wanted it to, or just things came up. They just had to kind of put a pin in it. And then they came back, and sometimes, like, you get that kind of second chance, and it really does go very well for you. But
Yeah.
I do love the concept, Bell and Bell, just the newscasters. Like, the first thing like that I thought of, it could make like a very good like comic strip, like one of those
Mm.
old time classic, like, drawn out with a pencil kind of things. Like, that's just where my mind goes to. But I think there is definitely like so many things that you can do with it.
Thanks a lot. I think they're super fun, and it really, I feel like these characters really help me express myself. Just
Mm-hmm.
as a person, I don't really, I don't know if I can articulate exactly where it comes from, but I just truly feel that deep within me is a desire to make people smile and make people laugh. And though I don't have every tool necessary to be like the best comedian or know exactly what to say with these voices in the moment, I feel that if I just show people that there is this enthusiasm in me and they come out in these characters in a certain way, my hope is that it'll help whoever's watching just feel a little more drawn to the community. And the reason I think that's so important is kind of what we've already mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, is that the community is so tight knit and positive. And I have personally, though I'm a streamer, I've found a place here and
Yeah.
feel that I want more people to find it. So I hope that things like Bill and Bill can express that enthusiasm and love I have for the community and everything that I'm pursuing here.
100%. Like, I think things like that, like, it's something that's a bit niche, it's a bit standout. A lot of people will know you for that, amongst other things. But you can never know every single one who's of the people who are watching you. Some people might just be there lurking in the background, there for Bill and Bill. Like, it's an escape for them. They're watching your stream, not talking to anybody, and then all of a sudden they hear Bill and Bill, and that is like their day made. Just things like that. I think having that little standout thing, like I said, it's notable, and it can give people something to look forward to. Like, I think that's a very good thing as a streamer to have, is like that kind of little niche. And the fact that it's something that just came to you one day playing a random game, and you've just sort of turned it into something, it's incredible.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It really, I feel that as self-conscious as I might be in real life, which I've done a lot of work on that, and I feel like today I can say that I've really conquered a lot of those
Mm-hmm.
self-conscious feelings that I've felt throughout my life. I find that as a content creator, especially in a, maybe not especially in a live setting, but I want to say especially in a live setting, if you can just trust yourself and go with your gut on the things that you think are interesting or funny. And if you really put that confidence and trust in it, and you go all in, it can become something like Bill and Bill, or there's another character
Mm.
on my stream called HMC Grandpa, and I couldn't tell you to this day where that came from because it was the same thing. It was just a spur of the moment mood that I was in that felt like, what if I just, conversed with myself, but the other half of myself is this old man that's saying my gameplay is horrible. It's just fun, and I think that people receive it well. They want your authenticity. Your authenticity. I think they do.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you raise as well. Like coming over, like overcoming all these like personal boundaries and all these like particular feelings and self consciousness that you have. It's it's incredible what like sitting in front of a camera, talking to yourself. You got a load of people in your chat playing a game. It is insane what that can do for one's self confidence. I
Oh,
think
sure.
like unanimously every streamer who I've spoke to, like on like this on a certain level, has thought that themselves. Like I find to this day, even myself, whenever I started streaming, my my confidence, even like in the real world, just shot up. Like I was able to just kind of come out of my shell a bit, and it's interesting how when you watch a streamer, you don't know who that person is behind it. You just know them as the person who's playing this game. You don't know what they're like in real life. You don't know what like their go through, things like that. But it's amazing how just being surrounded by the right community can just do absolute wonders for you, because it is more than just sitting at your computer playing a game. Like this is, you make communities, like people become friends through that. You become friends with people. It's and it spreads. Like it just absolutely snowballs out, because how many streams like have you been into other people's and they're like, oh, do you know such and such? Do you know such and such? Yeah, yeah. From my stream, this, that, and the other. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
it's just such an amazing sound. I described it in the last podcast with Logan. I described it. It's such a seminal thing, and like
Hmm.
a lot of people brought together by a mustached man in blue overalls.
Yep. We all have that common interest for sure. And it excuse me, it's a great thing. I totally agree. It's a very interesting place to be on the internet right now, and probably one that just exudes so much positivity compared to so many places.
Mm,
And I do agree. I think that streaming I think that streaming can come with so much self-validation. It can also come with the opposite. It depends. I do think that we as content creators need to manage, where our heads are at and where our intent's
yeah.
at, because the numbers can go both ways on you. And I think that it is as real as live stage performing. I've performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people live. I am not famous by any stretch. I don't mean to boast that number. It's just what I
No,
have.
do
It's
please
my
do.
experience, and I being in front of live crowds is not all that different from being in front of a text chat. It really
100%.
isn't all that different, and it can really take blows to your self confidence. It can bolster up your self confidence, especially just depending on the type of work that you as an individual has have done to manage what people think about you and how that affects you. But anyway, the real purpose of what I'm trying to say is that in my experience, this Mario community does really just bring the positivity, and there's so much love and connection between everybody, all with that common interest of Mario.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to be a part of, and I really feel like, I don't know if you feel this, but I like to think that we're in the good old days right now, and I want to savor every minute of it because it's just a wonderful place to be.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's exactly what you said. Everybody's got this common interest, and every single person watching, whether it's yourself, myself, anybody else, that is what brings them together. Everybody is like different, comes from different backgrounds, a different story to tell, but they all are brought together by this one common interest, and it is just such a great place to be. Like you say, it's yeah, it is beautiful, and the community has done some incredible things. Like
Hmm.
just everybody who's watched, tuned in, followed everything. It is just yeah, like you guys are the ones who really do help.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah,
It's such a unique experience because yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned that several people you've interviewed on this podcast said something similar to some of the things that I highlighted for 6 hours at the beginning of this, which was just, my journey was it was very multifaceted, and it took different
yeah,
forms at different times, and ultimately it has helped culminate to this moment where here I am on Mario, and I feel better prepared for it, better suited to handle the task that is being a part of the community, and especially a streamer at that, where people are looking to people like us to set the tone for what this community is all about. And I feel that other people have probably had similar experiences where just being a part of different communities and different
yeah.
pursuits in the past have helped give them the tools that they need to be doing what they're doing now. And
Oh yeah,
we all need that.
100%, 100%. Like obviously, like as a streamer, you kind of start building the community, but then it's the people within that who do help it rise. I think,
100%.
yeah. So you've mentioned on your streams before about you and your brother Tyson, your plans to make this for yourselves a full time gig. Now, is this
Ah,
something that you're working on at the moment, or like you're working on it logistically, or are the wheels in motion for it? Considering your combined successes together and your past experience, not just as brothers but gaming together, you know, there's a lot you can do. Like, are the plans in motion for this? And if so, like, what is the plan? If you don't
yes.
mind divulging.
No, of course. I'm totally open book on what I guess where my head's at and where Tyson's head's at. And I guess I can kind of speak for Tyson in some senses just because we work so
Mm-hmm.
closely together every day related to our communities. We take this as a joint effort from our perspective. Yeah, so at the beginning, for like I said, there's a decade of just connection between us, and that's why we're pursuing this. At our core, that is what we're doing. And
Yeah.
I think regardless of what I'm about to say with our plans to try and make this full time, regardless of that, I feel very confident that Tyson and I will be streaming for a very long time. Mario at that, because we really
Yeah.
truly love it, and it's something we were doing before streaming, and we started without in our minds thinking that this was a business pursuit of any kind. It was
Mm-hmm.
something that we loved. And anyway, that being said, yeah, we do want to see what we can do to prop up. This community has just been so good to us and has been such a positive experience, and we see so much potential to create spaces for people in this community and grow, just foster the environment that's already existing and introduce it to more people. I get so excited about spreading the type of things that I'm enthusiastic about. And there are also some personal, I guess, motivators that I have with Tyson's situation. He has a more traditional full time job where I have
Mm-hmm.
a big luxury of the thing that has ended up my full time pursuit in the last 5 years is very flexible. It's another social
Yeah.
media app. And so there is a big part of me that wants to help Tyson get to a point that I know that he would be less stressed and happy about. I don't mean to say that he's so stressed and unhappy with his job or anything. I think he likes what he does, but I know that he likes this more. This is a natural hobby, and we have an opportunity to potentially grow that and create some awesome opportunities for everyone around us. So, that all being said, really the long story short is that we do have it in us. We have decided that we would like to very seriously pursue avenues that will allow this to be more of a full time dedicated pursuit where Tyson would be able to quit his job. I would
Yeah.
probably still do my social media stuff so long as it didn't interfere with the number one thing. Will we be able to accomplish that? I'm not really sure. I know that we're going to give it our best bet. And if it's going to happen, like if there's ever a day where we feel like, yeah, we actually could put aside our other work pursuits, I don't imagine that would happen anytime within the next year or so. We see it as a long game, and so I may have communicated on stream that this is what we're looking for because it is what we're trying to do. But as far as the journey to get there, we're not in a hurry. It's something that we
Yeah.
love. We're going to continue loving it. If we can't make it full time, we're going to keep doing it. But it would be awesome to make it something that we could dedicate as much time as possible to because we think it's such a good place to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, with that, if you compare, your job to Tice's job, it sounds as though like you're in like the better position to move forward to that. But obviously it's a joint venture for you both. Like it's something you both
Yeah.
want to do together. Like because it's like how poetic is it you guys started all this together. Of course, you're gonna like rise together as well. Like it's
Yeah.
that I think that's such an amazing thing. Especially with your job, you're on social media anyway, and you've got the content experience. Tyson with his more sort of traditional 9 to 5, we can call it. Like
Sure. Yeah.
it's hard. It is a lot harder to balance that with streaming. Like I can speak to that from personal experience. That's what I do. Like I work 9 to 5. I come home. I stream, and you don't. There's not enough hours in the day for that.
Oh yeah.
But the fact that you guys are in that position already after X amount of time, where you can say, okay, we have these opportunities to go forward, that we can make this full time. These are the tools that we need, and I think it's good that the fail safe is, if it doesn't work out, you're in the position that you're in right now, which is for both of you, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
In the short time you've been doing this, there's that really good element of success on both TikTok, Twitch, very, very good following. And I mean, the world's your oyster for the pair of you guys.
Yeah.
For sure.
It really feels that way. I feel extremely fortunate to have the just everything on my plate. It is. I recognize and will not deny that my situation is very suited for content creation, and that's ultimately why I started doing it. There have been plenty of times, probably 2 or 3 years ago, where my wife and I would look seriously into, okay, this social media app that I'm doing, it's good and it's good consistent money now. It has turned into a full-time pursuit, but it just considering the future and what we want to do we want to make it a something that we have more as a side hustle, or am I going to continue doing this as my
Mm-hmm.
main thing? Should I pursue more of a traditional job? This is before I got into streaming. And because as I said, I was doing public speaking for out of college, but then the pandemic hit and all my live gigs were gone. And so at the time that I'm referencing right now, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to do live things. And we were thinking about the transition of our life and what I'm going to pursue. And long story short, it never ended up making sense. There wasn't a lot that I felt like I could pursue as I looked into different opportunities that justified the amount of changes that we would have in our interpersonal relationship, in the responsibilities that we share. And
Yeah.
there also weren't a lot of opportunities to make much more money right out the gate than I'm already making on this app. And so ultimately, I just decided, well, then I'm perfectly poised to do more content creation. And it's something that I love. And I know without a doubt that I am so extremely lucky to do that. And so I try to give back to other people when I can by helping them with things that I've learned. And especially with the pursuit with Tyson, I try to pick up as much slack as I can, just because I have more experience with it and more time to do it. And I hope it helps him in our pursuit, to just pick that up and do the things that I can to help him since I have more time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, whoever said that the pandemic was entirely a bad thing,
Oh
like
yeah.
if you look at
Hmm.
it, like that turned into like a major opportunity, for you.
It did.
It allowed you to expand your content creation, as you just said.
Hmm.
The public speaking thing, it's insane, because like if you look at it, if the pandemic never happened, where would you be today? Where do you think you'd still be? Do you think you'd still be doing public speaking, or in a more conventional job, as people might say? It's obviously one of them things you'll never know, but it's kind of mad to think about, given the fact that in 4 short years you could say that your life has changed completely, and now you're
Yes.
at the point where arguably pursuing your dream. It was
Yes.
something that you're passionate about, good at, and why not turn that into a full-time gig?
It's something that I'm passionate about, if not more passionate about than the public speaking was. Though I had so much aspiration to do that, and it was very successful at the beginning, just piggybacking off of my networking and everything that I'd
Mm-hmm.
done from the acapella groups that I'd been a part of. We'd done so many performing things that I'd met a lot of people that helped kickstart that journey for me. And if it weren't for the pandemic, you never know what would happen. Of course, something else could have been a big bump in the road that derailed everything, and maybe I'd have ended up in the same place. But as far as I'm concerned, if the pandemic didn't happen, it was successful enough, it was moving forward enough that I for sure would have kept doing that. And would that have made it so that it was impossible to do this? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's likely because this was all born from a hobby and a connection with my brother. I think that it probably would have come about in some form. I don't see why it wouldn't have, but
Yeah.
I don't see myself being in the spot that I'm in right now. Because if public speaking had kept going, I would be traveling around a lot more than I am now. Whereas now I'm basically home all the time, able to do things related to the stream. And I am so happy that that happened. So with the misfortune of the pandemic, and it was so scary at first when I lost all my gigs
For
and all my
sure.
potential for the money making at the time to keep things stable for my family. It has turned out to be one of the greatest fortunes for me
Oh,
because this
absolutely.
is just amazing.
Yeah. And do you think that you could ever get back into the public speaking setting, but from a remote standpoint? Like,
Yeah,
use your content creation, your streaming, and combine that with the public speaking? Because public speaking is like, it's a huge talent. It takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. It's not an easy thing to do.
sure.
And if it was something that you really enjoyed back then, do you think it's something that you could like revive in some way at the moment?
Absolutely. It's actually, the intent that I had behind public speaking was just to find a way to use the things that I have come to love, like beatboxing and performing. I really enjoy putting a smile on people's faces. I know how I can do that in a live setting. Public speaking really was born out of a desire to do that more and to find a way to monetize it. And the reason I say that is because that would provide me an opportunity to do it forever without having to
Yeah.
justify it. And if I can, people tell you all growing up, or at least they did for me, that if you can love what you're doing, you've got a good gig and you can do something for the rest of your life and know that you're going to love it. And so even though public speaking wasn't a super traditional pursuit and it was scary to
Hmm.
do in the first place just because I didn't know how I would get my foot in the door and if it would be successful, I knew that if I could make it work, then it would allow me to do something that I love so much that also spread joy to others and I could do it forever. The reason I say all of this, Andy, is just because now that I'm not able to pursue that in the same way, or maybe if I
Yeah.
went full in, I could get things going again. But I take streaming as a very similar pursuit. It to me, it isn't all that different. In practice, it definitely is because I'm now behind my computer and
Hmm.
I'm doing a video game as the main form of content. The beatboxing and any messages that I might choose to give in a public speaking sort of way, it's not the
Yeah, for
same, of
sure.
course. But at the end of the day, what I'm doing is something that I'm passionate about, something that I love to do, and I know that when I go full in on that in front of the people that choose to watch, I know that it's helping at least some of them. I get messages from people saying that, and I'm sure you've experienced that as well. And if that's what it is at its core, then to me, it's the same. And so, yes, I do think that it's already integrated in that way. And as far as can I integrate it a little more specifically in the future, I'm not totally sure because just straight I would probably need to I'm thinking of logistical things of how would I make it like similar to a real public speaking thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, to me I think there's plenty of opportunity to showcase similar vibes that I would in public speaking, and I feel very very grateful that that's able to happen in this medium.
Hmm. Think as well, like having such an extensive background in content creation, like you do, when one idea comes up, like it all of a sudden it's just like, well, I could do this, I could do this. It just you become so scatterbrained where it's the point
Yeah,
where, well, this is an idea. How could I make this work well? And then it just,
right.
yeah.
Immediately go into the details
Yeah,
because we've
pretty
been through
much.
it. I mean, a lot of people, if you don't
Yeah.
make content or you haven't done, I DJ'd for a family wedding last night. There's a lot of things like that that if you've never done it before, you don't actually realize that it's not as simple as just kind of deciding to do it and then doing it without any proper planning. I definitely don't mean to say that streaming or music or DJing or something is some difficult job. I don't consider it that. I love it. That's why I'm pursuing it,
Hmm.
and I feel very fortunate to be able to do so. But I also think it would be wrong to say that it doesn't take quite a bit of know-how. It takes,
Yeah,
some
for sure.
serious intent to learn how to do it right. I don't know that right's the best word, but how to do it in a way that people are going to receive it, considering the meta of social media and stuff. So
Oh yeah,
it's fun
absolutely. Like,
to learn about.
social media can be like the best and the most cruel place to
Hmm.
be, especially when you put yourself on that public platform.
Oh yeah.
Like especially TikTok. I'm going on TikTok live, like guaranteed to get at least one troll every single time.
Oh
Although that
yeah.
being said, I don't think I've ever really seen them in your chats before. Is
Ah.
that something that you've come across like much of, or
Oh
is
sure.
it sort of yeah?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I've definitely come across trolls. But I will say that generally I wouldn't consider it an issue that I have to face.
Yeah.
When people come in and say something, I've been bullied all my life. I'm overweight and have been overweight most of my life, and all through school I took criticism for that and had to learn to handle it. And I don't think that that's
Mm-hmm.
some unique sob story experience. That's why I say it so positively. It's just who I am and it's the experiences that
Of
I've
course.
had. But it's relevant to what I'm saying because when I got on TikTok to start streaming Mario, and to this day, anytime somebody says something, I'm presented with a choice, and that choice is to either internalize it and let it get to my emotions and hit my self esteem, hit my ego, or
Yeah.
find a way to just spin it in some positive way. And half of the time, if somebody trolls me, like say, essentially says something like "You are bad at Mario," the response that I'm going to give them is "You're right," and then make some joke out of it. And it's nothing novel or unique that I think someone else isn't able to do. I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
something that just has helped me to create an environment where you're right. Yeah, when I see somebody in chat, I almost always try to just view them as somebody that is not trying to troll and make some bit out of it. And if I can't do that, then you just have the mods take action. And the more that I can
Yeah.
do to control that, the better I play and the more positive I feel and am able to just kind of move forward and forget about it. So yeah, not
Mhm.
really an issue, but of course, it's the internet and I do have people coming in and criticizing me like other everyone else. I am pretty fortunate to have a community that helps manage it very well and generally there's a positive vibe
Oh,
in
for
chat.
sure. Yeah, like as you say, it is a choice how you react. It's, do you react in the way that they want you to, or as you say, turn it into a bit.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I definitely find from personal experience, if you do turn it into a bit, if you do make it into a joke, like, not like make them look like an arse for
Oh no, yeah.
doing that, but you're just making light of it, making it funny. A lot of people will like come back to you after stream and be like, "Oh, the way you dealt with that was so funny." It's like
Yeah.
that was the highlight of the stream for me, and that's kind of like, yeah, amazing. That is, if if that's the memorable thing for somebody, and it like brought them joy in some way, it was totally worth it. They're like, I don't know if you've had the same person come into your streams. He's come into mine a while for like every so often. I haven't seen him in a fair bit now, unfortunately. And I'm not going to say his name
Sure.
on here, but you might. He says the same thing every single time. It's two messages. The first message is brother. Second message, you have no idea what you're doing. I don't know if this guy has
Yeah.
ever been in your chat before.
Yes.
He has, yeah.
Yeah,
He
I've seen him.
goes around every Mario speedrunner on TikTok, and like,
Mhm.
I miss him sometimes. Oh my god, because I just was
Yeah.
like, the first time I seen it, I was like, I think it was in Logan's stream when he came in or something. It was another stream, and then he came into mine, and I just kept talking to him. I was just like, "Oh, Seth, are you okay? Is everything okay? Like, I've missed you. Like, I've really needed that validation. I know I don't know what I'm doing, but I needed the reminder." And like, I chatted to him, like, and he's like kept coming back. He's like, "Oh, all the mods in every stream are mean to me," and I'm kind of like, "Well, no wonder." But they just,
Right.
and like he kept coming back, and I was just like, amazing. And then I ended up buying a t-shirt recently. Like, this was purely coincidental. It was the first time I put this t-shirt on, and the t-shirt just says, "I have no idea what I'm doing." And I put it on, and I was like, "Oh shit, Seth."
That's legendary.
I know I just said his name. I just said his name there. I said I wasn't going to, but
Oh, it looks like everybody in chat seems to know.
everybody in chat here is saying it anyway. So if anybody
Yeah.
goes back and watches the VOD on Twitch, then you'll know. But if you listen on like Spotify, Amazon, Apple, then
Oh, right.
but I digress. But then since I've wore that t-shirt on stream, he hasn't come back in, and it's kind of like almost a little bit disappointing. But it was a complete coincidence that I bought that. But
That's so
sometimes
funny.
like you get those, like, I think it's the ones who come across in multiple people's streams and say the same thing. They are my favorite ones, because it's like no one's banned them. It's just, you're just so harmless. You just are going to come in and just say whatever and then leave. It's like, okay,
Right.
cool, you're and it's like that. We're laughing about this now, and like, not everybody might have that same opinion. Some people might be like, "Oh, this guy comes in, he's so annoying, it makes me not want to do this." But like, if
Mm,
you can just turn it into something funny, it
right.
it almost makes it so much better.
I agree. It's definitely, I think that it depends on your life experience too. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
brought up that I've dealt with like a lot of bullying as I grew up, and that helped condition me to be in a situation like that and figure out what I want to do when that happens and how is it going to affect me. And I think that so many people have dealt with this kind of thing. And so as I said before, I don't think this is a unique experience I went through, but just
Mm-hmm.
pointing out that it did help me, and I can imagine that not everybody that gets into streaming is as equipped or as experienced with the type of things that people are willing to say because they're hiding behind the
Yeah.
screen, that it can really get to you, I mean, even with everything that I've said, I'm still a person, and things I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not super equipped or experienced to completely be untouchable in this way. I feel things when people say them, even though I don't know them, and they might be 8 years old, and
Yeah.
I just see that what we're talking about, I guess what I'm getting at is that it is a great way to go, and it's something that I try to employ, but I recognize that it's a little bit easier said than done. It can be
Yeah.
difficult to deal with the criticism and try and stay focused on your speed run or whatever you're trying to do for the stream that day when somebody's coming in. It is a great way to go. But yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So right now, let's just take a step back
Sure.
from content creation, streaming, which I know obviously, like, you've a long-standing history of content creation, a big part of your life. But take that all out of the equation for it. What are your hobbies and interests outside of stream? Like, say you're not at your computer for a day, no beatboxing content.
Mhm.
What would you go out and do? What's your interests outside?
So when I was in school, if the first day of school, a lot of times you'll kind of go around the room and you'll say everyone will have to say their name and they'll say their favorite color and they'll say something
Mm-hmm.
interesting about themselves. Whenever I was put in a situation like that, kind of like I am now, I know that you're not asking that question, but I
Of
feel
course.
like it's relevant because what are my hobbies outside of streaming? This is so boring, but what I do on stream, those are my hobbies. That I feel that it is so important for content creators to integrate things that they are truly passionate about and truly
Mm-hmm.
able to pursue regardless of the stream. The reason I feel that passion for this topic is because the first time around when I started streaming a variety of games on Twitch in 2021 and 2022, my main focus was to entertain regardless of how I felt
Yeah.
about it. And I would pursue games that I wasn't necessarily interested in. I found myself playing Roblox because I was asked to, and it just wasn't something I was passionate about. And Ultimately, I didn't stop streaming for a time related to that wave of streaming those years because it just was something I hated or wasn't successful or anything. Ultimately, there were a few more logistical things at play, but I think it's not all
Yeah.
that uncommon for people to get into content creation and feel that they need to find a way to get viewers. And it's hard because, of course, that's important. If you're trying to pursue this, especially if you have anything in mind to go full time with it or do it for a long time, you want people to watch you. If you're streaming to no
Hmm.
viewers, then it can feel hard. I think I heard Soti talking about that on your podcast a few episodes ago.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
but it's so important, I think, to not just try to cater and also do something that is authentically you and
Yeah.
authentically what you feel good about doing. And so that's the answer. I hate to say
No,
it, but
it's
I don't have a lot of hobbies outside of gaming, beatboxing. I love audio. I make music,
mhm.
but that's also feels very related to my stream and content. I do like to cook. I wouldn't say that it's a giant hobby, but it is something that I found myself really liking. I enjoy cooking for others, and if they eat the food that I make and they like it, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I enjoy cooking honestly for that reason. I enjoy spending time with my family. Of course, I play fetch with my
Mm.
dogs every day and try to take care of them. I wouldn't say that I'm much of a nature goer, believe it or not. I don't do a lot of like hiking around, even though I live in Utah with a lot of mountains. It's never been something that I'm super into, but yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's really who I
Of
am. I
course.
I present who I am on stream. I try to.
Do you know what? That's the you're the first person that I asked that question to everybody, and you're the first person who's just been like, "This, this is my hobby." Do you know what?
That's cool.
Fair. And the fact that the fact that, like you say, you put your person into your content, like
Mhm.
that's, you can't really get more authentic than that. Like, your life, your hobbies, that is what you put out there. That's your input and your output. Like, and that, I think that is amazing. Like, like I say, makes it more authentic. People can then really feel like they know who they are, or who you are, sorry, whenever they're watching you. It's like, who
Yeah,
you are in real life is what people see on screen.
I hope
um
so.
for sure. I don't think that's something that you get a lot with too many people, because a lot of people I know who stream, they're holding back maybe like that extra few percent of like
Sure,
their full true person for
sure.
whatever reason it may be. And I don't think it necessarily is a bad thing. I always think everybody should be
No,
true to themselves, but sometimes it could just very much be a confidence issue. It could be anything. Like, maybe people just don't want to put themselves out there too much for fear of what they might get back from other people. For example, it could be like, it's a plethora of reasons. Like,
yeah.
um, but just, you mentioned you're into cooking. So this
Mhm.
this now this might just put you on the spot here, but say you have a dinner party, you're hosting a dinner party. What three courses are you cooking for your guests?
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay, so I'm not super into baking, so I probably
Hmm.
wouldn't make any like I wouldn't bake any desserts. If I was gonna do like a dessert, I'd probably just go get it at the store. Lazy.
Fair.
But
No, do you know what? Fair. I respect that a lot. I
mm,
respect
thanks.
that.
If I was really trying to impress and trying to make things, I mean, I'm not a pro. I haven't been like formally trained or anything. It's just something that I found myself liking.
Yeah, of
I
course.
would probably just make the things that I feel like people really like and I really like to eat. So there is a white bean chili soup. It's the bomb. I love this thing. It's just a really, really nice soup. And every time I've ever brought it to a party, I've gotten multiple people saying that they really enjoy it. I put it on my Discord, and I think you're probably familiar with MC, a streamer on TikTok and Twitch.
Of course, of course. Yeah.
I remember her telling me that she made it several times and really, really
Ah,
love
no
it. I
way.
just like this soup. So I would probably make white bean soup, white bean chili. I don't remember what it's called, but it's just basically beans and chicken and, um, you know, chicken stock, vegetables, and stuff like that. It's really good.
Hmm.
And a couple with that, I have always really loved making sauces. The thing that kind of got me into making food generally and getting into cooking was making sauces from scratch. It was such a
Yeah.
novel idea that I'd never thought about most of my life. And then it was introduced to me that you can make it from scratch. And I really loved that process. And so, in the vein of that, or just considering that, I would probably want to make like probably some sort of enchilada or
Mm.
uh something that would couple with the vibe of the chili,
Yeah.
but then something that I could put a sauce on. So I would think of making some sort of sauce with enchiladas, and I'm sure that I would make such a white boy version of all of this, but that's what it would be. It's me. Um and then for a final court, yeah, I would probably want to go for some sort of, you know what? Now that I think about it, because I wouldn't do a dessert and I don't like to bake, I would probably just mix up a drink of some sort, whether that be
Ah.
a big, I don't know, a big juice of some sort that I think is sweet and good. The thing is that here I am going to, I'm so vague about this because I don't know what it would be. But that would probably be the other thing. I'd probably like try and highlight some fun thing like a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, just like a big sweet punch bowl just to go in the middle. You know, I
Mhm.
think if you do like two exceptionally good courses at first, you don't need a great dessert. You know, just something
Sure.
like you say, store bought. Like, you know, you did the hard work. You know, store bought
Right.
for the rest.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'd
Oh,
probably
that's
go for
awesome,
something
man.
like that. Thanks for asking that. That was kind of fun.
No, do you know what? Fair play for you being able to just answer that right on the spot there.
Mm,
Because yeah, amazing. I definitely feel like I need to get this white bean and chili recipe off you because that sounds absolutely banging.
I'll send it your way.
Amazing, man. Amazing. That's awesome, man. I really, yeah, like it's sometimes just sort of simplicity is just like, is just a beautiful thing sometimes. I think, you know, just like you're living your hobbies are your passion. It's just, you make it a big part of your life. And I think that is, yeah, that's incredible, man.
Thanks a lot.
So, so just want to round this off here. So look back at your streaming journey and your content creation journey right from the very beginning. You know, and with your, coupled with that with your future plans. What advice would you give to any aspiring streamer slash content creator? Now we know a lot
Mhm.
of people in this position. And now the reason I ask this to you specifically is because you've got this unique ability to maintain such a positive and enthusiastic attitude during your streams, more so than in any other streamer than I've seen before. Especially given obviously you speedrun Mario, that's like your main thing on streaming, and you and I both know how mentally taxing that can be. But
Mhm.
every time I watch a speedrun of yours, you know, you've always got a smile on your face. You always maintain this just positive, radiant attitude. What
Thank you.
advice would you give to people up and coming who want to be in the same position?
Thanks for saying all that. I mean, in
Of
that
course.
vein of what you just said, with trying to maintain positive, I think that I do have some advice that has worked for me. I don't think that one size fits all here, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, I find that the more I can focus on managing stress in my personal life, the more able I am to focus on the game and maintain positive vibes as things don't go my way, which I don't always do perfectly. But I think this is really important, even though this is such a simple thing that I'm about to say that isn't very novel advice. I just believe that it is very true for everyone. I think if you have multiple stresses stacking up on top of each other, that maybe are rooted, they start in things that are really personal to you, maybe that you view yourself in a certain way that is difficult, or you're doing something that is hard for you to admit, it affects your life in some negative way. And then on top of that, you have your family relationships
Yeah.
or dating relationship that maybe is adding some sort of stress, and those two on top of each other can get kind of big. They can get kind of difficult to deal with. Then you add in something like financial stress or work
Yeah,
stress on
for
top of
sure.
that, and maybe you're grieving some loss that you're going through at the time. If all of these things start stacking up on top of each other, I find it true in my life that it is very difficult to play Mario, fall in Dark World, and not take a blow, and not feel like that is somehow a testament to who you are as a person and why your life is difficult. Um,
Uh-huh.
so what I'm getting at here is learning to intentionally walk through life and think mindfully about the things going on surrounding your stream and doing everything that you can to just knock down the most manageable stress in the most intentional way possible, I find that that legitimately helps a person like me. I don't know that it would help everybody, but it helps me so much to feel like I can go in, die in TikTok clock on the best pace ever. I'm at the end of the run and not think to myself, you're a piece of crap. It helps me to stay positive. Someone can come into my stream and say something negative about me, and I don't think to myself, they're right. Literally, they are right.
Yeah.
And it hurts, you know. I feel like if I could have learned, it's a long process, even though it's simple to get to that place for me. And I know that it ebbs and flows. I'm going to be better at this some days than others. But if I really took on this concept head on for me personally, 10 years ago, it would have helped me a lot as I tried to put myself out there with content creation. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice I'd give, especially in the vein of staying positive.
Yeah, and you know what? That's absolutely amazing advice. I think it's like important to, when you get into doing this, to go in with the right mindset. Go in for the right mindset and the right reasons. Do it because you want to do it. But I think it's important to prioritize. Prioritize you. Prioritize your well-being, the people around you, the people closest to you. Like, you know, whether it be, you know, your wife, your partner, anything like that. There are certain things in what you what you could call the real world that
Yeah.
you need to tend to first. And that's the thing. Sometimes there's not like there. Sometimes it's incredibly hard to go into somebody's stream and they're just looking miserable. They've had a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like, you're not enjoying this because you're not in a position to enjoy this. Like,
Sure.
you need to get yourself right first.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that is incredibly important advice, I think, to give, you know, especially because of how many people we know in the position who are just starting out. They're
Oh
in
yeah.
their first couple of months, um and like I say, like, you know, playing Mario 64 speedrunning, that's a seminal thing. Like, how many people who just play that because they've joined the Mario 64 community from following any one of us, amongst others, and they've started to get into it themselves. And I've seen a lot of people who started out with that, and it just didn't work out because it wasn't right for them. They tried to just emulate others in some ways. And I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely one of those people too. Like, I started running Mario 64. That was how I started streaming, and
Mm-hmm.
I do other things now because
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't handle the heat, so I got out of the kitchen, as they say.
Oh, sure. No, but I think that making a transition like that is totally acceptable. And yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. And I very likely in the future will be making moves that I don't know for sure. I see myself doing
Mm-hmm.
Mario for a long time because it is something that I um, started as a hobby. I don't see
Yeah.
myself moving on from it quite anytime soon. But I think it's totally appropriate to do that. I mean, as I pursued this hobby with Tyson over the years, we moved from game to game as we went, and there were
Yeah.
various reasons that we did that. But if Tyson and I ever felt so boxed in with Mario that we didn't want to keep doing that either as the main content or at all, I think it's much better and much more thoughtful to do something like you, where you start integrating more things and integrating things that you feel more enthusiastic about for the sake of the community and the
Yeah.
people that watch you. I think it's very intentional and thoughtful of you to do that, and makes total sense. If somebody gets into streaming and they feel like they're just doing what I did back in 2021 and was if you're just trying to cater to an audience and just trying to drive up people's interest in
Yeah.
you, and it doesn't really have that um it doesn't really set a fire in your heart in some way, I think that you ultimately are writing a recipe for burnout. And
Oh,
so,
100%.
yeah,
100%. Yeah. Like, I think it's important to love what you do when you're doing this, especially with it being a hobby. As soon as it starts to feel like work, but in like the negative sense,
sure.
change it up, do something different,
Hmm.
or maybe it's just not for you.
Hmm.
And if that's the case, there is no shame in that, because I like anything, if you give it a go and you give it the best that you possibly can, even if it doesn't work out, it was worth it just for knowing that that was the case, I think.
I tend to agree. I totally agree. I think
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with taking even if you need to take a step back, if you're feeling that stress in the real world, as we've coined, outside of the stream, and it's causing you to not enjoy it.
Hmm.
There's no shame in taking a break. The community of
Yeah.
people, I feel, I don't know if everybody gets in this brain. You'll have to tell me if you agree, but I find myself really overthinking my place in my chat's life. I kind of tend to think if I don't go live tomorrow, I'm ruining someone's day. I think that, not because I think I make everybody's day. I hope that doesn't come across
No, I
self-inflated.
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
A pressure. Do you feel like you felt that?
Well, for sure, yeah, because at the end of the day, as a streamer, you have like your schedule,
Yeah.
and it's funny. Craigie said the exact same thing to me whenever I interviewed him.
Mm,
He said that there were people who would, he would start his first stream day of the week as a Wednesday, and he said that there were people who would be like, "Oh yeah, it's Wednesday, Craigie's streaming, amazing, that's good.
mm-hmm,
I have something to look forward to."
mm-hmm.
So it's that sort of thing. If you're not going live on a scheduled day, there is that little thing, even if it's like a small percentage of you, just in the back of your head, just like, are people going to be disappointed? Or
Right.
you can kind of get in your own head about it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
And what is that
and
doing? It's just adding to that stress that might be making you have a hard time streaming. And so in that vein,
absolutely,
I think it's totally acceptable to just put your best foot forward. Sometimes you may need to take a break, and I personally don't think that content creators should feel the stress and guilt that might be associated with the idea of just taking a step back for a second.
hmm,
And
absolutely,
I feel like that's true. I see big content creators doing that, stepping away for quite a while
yeah.
sometimes.
Like sometimes it's just a necessity. Sometimes you just need to take a step back, reset, recharge, and just come back with a fresher head.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to hit burnout. You'll know this yourself. You could do like a 4 or 5 hour stream, and even though you've been sitting at your computer the whole time, talking, playing Mario, and before even streaming, like that is what people did to just relax.
Yeah.
You know, like you come off a stream and you're like, wow, I am tired.
Oh
That
yeah.
took a lot out of me mentally and physically, and you're just exhausted. And it's in a good
Mhm.
kind of way,
Oh yeah.
but I think sometimes people don't realize the exhaustion. Like
Mhm.
somebody actually said to me recently that they guested on somebody's stream about a month ago, I want to say, or a few weeks ago, and they got taught how to do 16-star speedrun for Mario. And she goes to me, I have a lot more respect for streamers now because that was exhausting.
Mhm.
Like the
Mhm.
few hours she spent on someone's stream, someone who's not a streamer, yeah, like it really. I think when people do start it, it really makes them see it in a whole light for like how people who've been doing it a longer time, one, the work that goes into it, and
Mhm.
two, the absolute mental capacity that it can take. So it is important to go in with the right mindset, I think.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I said earlier during this podcast that I feel that being on stream in front of people, as a person who has performed in front of a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it is not all that different in the way that it
Yeah.
feels, in the validation you can get versus the opposite, where maybe you feel like you had a bad performance or stream. But
Yeah.
in this context, it makes I think it's the exact same. I feel that streaming, when you're putting yourself out there to do the stream, there's so much that goes into it, just like there was so much that went into my live performances, that there's
Yeah.
just so much back end know-how that you have to really know. And if you skip those things, you can still technically stream, and maybe that's why it kind of comes across like streaming is just kind of a person hanging out. Maybe there are a lot of people that do pursue it in this way. Technically, any of us could just go live from our phone, but half of the time I feel like most streamers are spending hours and hours outside of the stream setting up their scenes, understanding
Yeah.
OBS, understanding the way their internet and machine works, understanding how to make the game and everything just runs smoothly. That's not even getting into audio and lighting and all sorts of things. It's a great pursuit. I'm very fortunate to pursue it. I always feel the need, and so many content creators feel the need, I think, to clarify. Yeah, we're lucky for what we're doing. We're not saying it's like
Yeah.
hard and we live miserable lives. It's a great thing to pursue, but to say that it doesn't come with so much know-how and work and people, to say that a person couldn't, make it a full-time pursuit that really takes a lot of intention and know-how, I just think that's not true. It's a big thing to take on if you want to do it well.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. And it's something that it can be a reality check for some people in some ways.
Sure.
Like I was one of those people. Whenever I first saw OBS, I was like, audio mixer. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I had to get help with my my setup, my mic, and it takes time. It absolutely takes time, and like it is, every day is a learning experience, whether it be with your setup, whether it be with what you're playing, whether it be with your community, your viewers, everything. You're constantly learning, and I think that's the best part about it. Sometimes is, it's like, okay, I can improve. How can I? This is what I can do. And I think it breeds innovation and creativity. And yeah, like it's a wonderful place to be, surrounded by wonderful people.
I would agree. It moves in a very, it's definitely something that if you really are invested in, it's going to keep you on your toes and be interesting all the time, especially when you're on platforms like, if you think about the way that Twitch and TikTok behave, excuse me, those platforms a lot of times are doing their own thing that they are promoting out or incentivizing creators to take part in, especially TikTok. I've learned recently there's a lot of events that they do and incentives that they do that they want you to use different features, and learning about all of that, it's like a never-ending experience. There's just so much to learn about the streaming side, the platforms, the game that you're playing is already if you're trying to really take it far, even if you're not, honestly, even if you're just trying to baseline speed run, there's so much to learn about how to make that happen. And I really love it for that. I love this pursuit because I find myself finding so much satisfaction personally just getting into the details of whatever I am familiar with or interested in at the time, like beatboxing or acapella. These were things that I wanted to get into the details and learn everything about them. And it's not all that different when I'm thinking of something like the OBS streaming software. There's so much to learn about it, and it's totally related to what I do. I find so much joy in just learning about as much as I can with it. And it turns out I don't know that I'll ever learn everything because there's just so much. It's really fun to be a part of for me.
Oh, 100%. And like I say, it is a beautiful thing, that because you're not just like doing one thing. You're not just like, it's not just a case where you sit down in front of your computer and you go into this sort of autonomous way for 3 or 4 hours while you're streaming.
Yeah.
It's like constantly like everything that's like, what goes into this, especially when you're playing Mario as well. I have seen the amount of detail you go into to learn specific tricks, whether it be, well, all down to your inputs and stuff and everything like that. And I think that's because most people, I think, would get frustrated if it's just not working out, and they get frustrated, move on to something else. But the fact that, you go in and you break it down, you get it up on your screen for everybody to see. It's like everybody is then learning with you. It's not just you're just sort of, it's not like, I don't want to use the term gatekeeping, but like you're not just doing it offline because whatever, and be like, come back the next day and be, oh, I learned this, which is fine. But it's just another way I think is a little bit different about your stream, and I think for the better, of course.
Thanks a lot for saying that. I haven't really thought about it that way, but that does make sense. I really find myself in speedrunning getting into the details. I love being very conscious of I kind of think of everything. This is something that I think I may have only told Tyson before. I'm not sure if I've said it on stream, but in my eyes, everything is pillarless. Pillarless is a trick in the game, for anybody that doesn't know, in Mario that's pretty difficult. You need to take one of the characters, a bob-omb, and you need to chuck the bob-omb after grabbing it. You need to re-grab it. Then the bob-omb, you need to grab it on a pretty specific frame usually. And then you get pushed backwards by the bomb. And then you've got to re-grab it again. And then you got to traverse through all of the quicksand to get to the point where you're on a pyramid. And then ground pound in a specific spot that will clip you inside of the pyramid that is typically inaccessible to the player. The reason I got all in the details about pillarless is because that trick in and of itself was something that when I learned it, it was obvious that I could not accomplish this task unless I understood it start to finish. Every moment I have to know, what does Mario have to do to get from point A to point B. Whereas a different star like Wild Blue in Womp's Fortress, one of the easier quote unquote stars in the game,
Mm-hmm.
might seem a little bit less like that pursuit. You don't have to think about every input from start to finish.
Yeah.
My philosophy is that and I don't know that it's a philosophy as much as just who I naturally am. I just view it this way. And when I started speedrunning from the get go with no experience, this is how I started learning my first star. I want to know exactly what to do every single moment from point A to point B, not just how to get there, but what I do along the way. And so,
Yep.
in that vein, everything is pillarless. And I think it does make sense to me why I'm interested in that because, I speak Russian. I had to learn a language
Oh wow.
that I do speak Russian. And when you are learning a second language, you really need to get into the details of that language if you want to speak it
Yeah.
well. There's so much to learn, and you can't get frustrated with your lack of knowledge as you start and how much there is to take on. So there's that. And then I think of beatboxing is very similar. If you're trying to do a
Yeah.
beat that is something like if you want to do that beat, you need to know every single sound that you make in what order. And so you have to
Yep.
take time to learn all of the sounds, do them well in their own right, almost as if they're a move in Mario from point A to point B. And the finishing to finish the beat and do it from point A to point B or all the way through, you really have to get into the details. And I love that process. So anyway, I just spoke forever again, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I like the details and it serves
Yeah.
me in Mario, and it's part of who I am. I do find myself interested in that stuff.
No, that's amazing. I love that philosophy. Everything is pillarless.
Hmm.
That is just that should be a hashtag in itself. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that should just be everything is pillarless. That because especially for how deep that goes,
Hmm.
just with the detail, understanding everything. Like also, side note, did not know you spoke Russian. That
I
is
do. Hmm.
amazing. Yeah, that is like what was the just as a little sort of side tangent. What was when did you learn that and like what was the
Yeah.
inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so I studied Russian. It was my bachelor's. But the reason that I got
Ah.
into Russian, I grew up in Utah, and in Utah, there's a lot of Mormons. It's a big part of the culture, and
Mm-hmm.
I grew up Mormon. I'm no longer Mormon. I've stepped away from the church, but when I was 19, it's very common for Mormons to serve what they call a mission, and so
Yeah.
basically, I went out and went to Ukraine and learned Russian and talked to people about Jesus Christ in Ukraine in Russian, and that's how I learned it. That's what I did.
Wow.
That's where it
Amazing.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But even at that, like it's something you go out and you experience something in well, experience something like that from source,
Hmm.
as I'd like to say.
Mm.
And that can only really increase your personal interest in it. Because
Oh
you've
yeah.
had like the most authentic experience that you possibly could have had. Just like, well, okay, I can't just let it end here. Just have to continue this on. It's that's amazing. That is brilliant.
Thanks a lot. It
Like
was a big part
and
of my, I mean, big part of my life
yeah.
that I did that. It was a great experience. And though I've stepped away from the religion itself and I don't consider it a part of like who I am
Yeah, of
today,
course.
it still is a big part of how I grew up and a big part of,
Mm-hmm.
my family's culture. And, having that opportunity to go to Ukraine and learn Russian, it's a big part of how I met Mary, my partner. She
Yeah.
went to the same place. She also went to Ukraine. We didn't meet each other there, but we met each other after, and it was what brought us together. And yeah, I feel really fortunate to have had those types of experiences because it really
Yeah.
has helped me become who I am today.
That's amazing. Like it shows that I think everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
And like what I like is that your whole journey, all the details, you've brought your community on with you. And I think
Mm,
that's a phenomenal thing. I think that is that's amazing, man. That is
thanks.
and honestly you've done phenomenal for what you're doing.
Oh, that's a huge compliment, Andy. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
I look up to what you're doing so much. I feel like the positivity that you have a very uniquely positive vibe. I feel like you're
Thank you.
very approachable and you're clearly so driven at what you're doing, at least from my perspective, with
I
everything that you're
appreciate that,
doing
man.
with the podcast. It's not, I've never been an interviewer, but I've done enough things like what you're doing in content creation that I am positive that this is not a simple pursuit making this podcast. You're doing a great job interviewing from my perspective. Not that I'm authority on it or anything, but
No, well, I
just look
appreciate
up
that,
to it.
man.
Of
That's incredibly kind of you to say. Thank you so much.
course.
Yes, Beats, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today.
A
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for taking the time. Thank you for taking the time to come on. Yeah, it has been amazing. As always, I'm AndyGames _94. My guest today has been NewmanBeatbox. Newman, do you have any final words for the listeners today?
Final words. I know I can. This is a theme in my stream. It helps us keep going no matter what's going on. Tell yourself, I know I can. Even if you don't really believe it, say it out loud. Keep saying it. And eventually it'll serve you. I really believe that. And that's a big theme in my stream.
Amazing. Words to live by. Yes, thank you again, Beats. It has been a pleasure.
Mutually.
We'll be back again for another edition of Behind the Camera with another guest soon. Until then, guys, thank you all so much. Everybody who's tuned in live on Twitch, everybody listening on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Love and appreciate every single one of yous. I will see you guys again. Take care.
Take care.